Thank you for joining us for the ITIS Fireside Chat at the Future Ready Application Summit. I'm Sangeeta Singh, and I lead the business strategy and outlook for the IT and IT services companies at Microsoft India. It is our privilege and my privilege to have Rafi Tarafdar here with us. Rafi Tarafdar is the Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for Infosys. Rafi is responsible for the technology strategy and vision. He's responsible for sensing and scaling emerging technologies, and he is driving the partnership with customers in enabling this digital transformation for the customers. Rafi is the co-author of the book Live Enterprise and co-author of the HBR article, which is Micro Changes for Large-Scale Transformation. Rafi, thank you for joining us here. And we're really, really happy to have you with us here to learn from your experience and your insights, both at Infosys and what you're doing with your customers. Just to give a context, inner sourcing, agile, secure code development, low code, no code are some of the priorities that we're talking about for our customers, particularly in the IT and the IT services space. But what's really going to be interesting for our clients would be, Rafi, how did you think about your own strategy internally, what we call customer zero, and how did you then have an approach to take it to your customers? So would love to hear your learnings and insights from the book Live Enterprise.
Sure. Live Enterprise is, a journey that we started a few years back when Nandan came back and joined us as the chairman. And at that time, based on a lot of experience he had with the national scale transformations and in the startup, he said, we need to transform Infosys to be a digital native company. And, at that time, when we looked at a lot of aspirations of our clients were also trying to be digital native because their competition was no longer the traditional players, but they were now starting to compete with digital native companies and technology companies. So that led to the development of a vision of Live Enterprise. So Live Enterprise essentially is an approach, a framework that we use to transform traditional enterprises to operate like digital natives. And one of the very important principles that was defined at the beginning of this whole initiative was that we will walk the talk, which means everything that we will envision has to be implemented at Infosys first. And while we implement at Infosys, we will mature our thinking. We will understand what is working, what is not working. Because if you look at it, Infosys is also a 40-year-old company. We are a global organization. We have more than 300,000 employees. So our scale and spread is also very similar to our customers. And we said, as we do this, we will take these learnings and then we'll essentially start applying into the transformation journey that our clients are embarking on. And that's the story of Live Enterprise, right? So it's two sides of the same coin, one for our own internal transformation, and second, taking those learnings, those IP, those assets, those frameworks that we have built, and then applying to accelerate our clients' transformation journeys.
Thank you, Rafi, for sharing your approach for Live Enterprise. You talked about SaaSification and IPs. I'd be very curious to know, how are you thinking about your strategy for SaaSification of these IPs? How is it relevant for your business growth? And how is it relevant for your customers? Would be great to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. See, the IP platforms and SaaSification is an important area of focus for us. And we are taking a multi-pronged approach towards it. As a first step, one of the things that we wanted to do is to curate all the different IP platforms that we have across the company, across our subsidiaries in a discoverable format. And that is where what we did is we created a service store. You can think of a service store like an app store on iOS or a Play Store on the Android ecosystem, where all these IP platforms are available and discoverable. And anybody at Infosys, if they want to know, what kind of IP do we have, let's say in AI, in metaverse, in healthcare, in banking industry, then they will be able to identify these. And what we've also done is we follow a mechanism where we rate each of these assets starting from lab, incubate, graduate, so that we can also understand the maturity of these assets based on the number of client implementations, and also based on the value that it is adding. Now, as you would find that some of these assets, they move towards the incubate and graduate state. What we have now started doing is we are saying, how do we make it available to our client facing teams and our customers directly online. And this is where, as part of our broader Cobalt initiative, which is about bringing a lot of these industry solutions and platforms to our customers directly, we are launching a marketplace. And in a marketplace, all of these different platforms are available, where you could essentially go and try it out. You can play around with it, you can understand what value it could add, and then essentially also use it for implementation, right? So the second step is to democratize, make it available for everybody to try it out, to experiment, play around, and then show interest. Now the third part then becomes, how do you make it available? And this is where we do a combination of managed services, where, for example, some of our clients, they want to launch very quickly in about 2 to 3 months. So for them, we offer a managed service offering of these IP on cloud that they can access like any other SaaS solution and use it. Second is, some of our existing industry platforms as well as the technology platforms are also available in a SaaS only manner, that our customers will be able to subscribe and use. These could be things like our Wingspan, our Trade Edge, our Equinox platforms, and all that we are doing. So, over a period of time, using these different strategies, we are trying to make these available and also to SaaSify. And I think it's a journey, and we are working on this journey as of now.
Very well explained, Rafi. How you talked about your strategy of SaaSification, managed services, and all essentially to drive customer velocity and meet what they're looking for. That, in fact, Rafi, is a perfect segue for the next question that I had is, how are you thinking about developer velocity? There was a tweet that I had once read that talked about developers being like an artist, who have a canvas to create what our customers need. And how are you all thinking, Rafi? What are your thoughts and strategies on providing that developer velocity that can help drive their efficiency and therefore allow them to innovate for our customers at scale? What are your thoughts on that, Rafi?
No, developer velocity absolutely is a key focus area for us. And we are looking at almost five-pronged strategy in order to, accelerate that velocity. The first is, we're saying, how do we democratize access to infrastructure, democratize access to tooling, democratize access to specialized infrastructure, like, for example, GPUs that could be required for the training of AI models and all that. So we have enabled and rolled out One Stop, which is like a one-stop shop where our developers can provision environments on any of the clouds, public cloud, private cloud, even on an AI cloud, to create an environment for them where they can experiment and they can try out. And eventually, for projects, they can actually use it to provision it in an automated manner. And all of this, we wanted to make it available as self-service, the way most of the hyperscalers provide, so that our developers can essentially, don't have to spend too much time on infrastructure, environments, and all that. The second thing then was, how do we bring extreme automation in the entire engineering life cycle? And this is where a lot of activities in the engineering life cycle, be it in terms of the code generation, coding, testing, DevSecOps, deployment, operations, and all, are areas where we have invested in a lot of IP and platforms. And we also use a lot of our partner assets here in order to accelerate that entire life cycle, because some of the projects we work on have hundreds of developers, and the only way we can have velocity is if the entire life cycle is fully automated, which becomes the second part of it. The third is, we are also a big believer in open source and inner sourcing. So in order to create a culture where a developer, generally developer has a mindset that whatever I create is the best, and whatever somebody creates may not be that good. So we wanted to change the culture where we wanted to move from a creator mindset to a consumption mindset. And for that, what we did is we launched Code Store. Code Store again is a repository which leverages GitHub at the back end, and it essentially provides all the reusable codes, SDKs, frameworks, and services that are very granular in nature, which our developers can use in order to accelerate the code faster, and to test faster, and in order to roll out solutions faster to our clients. And that becomes an important element. The fourth part, as part of it, what we've also done is we are looking at AI augmented engineering in a very strategic way. And the idea is, can we use AI, especially with the developments that are happening in large language models and foundation models? We want to look at leveraging AI to augment not only developer, a tester, a product manager, a product owner, a visual designer, as well as an operations person, to help them perform their activity in a much better way. And here, we also did some interesting work with GitHub Copilot, where we saw, using GitHub Copilot, how can we accelerate the entire coding cycle? And in our internal pilots, at least we saw that, we could get some 35% velocity if we are able to do. Obviously, AI augmented engineering is still an emerging area, but this is one more area that will essentially drive a lot of velocity. And the fifth is to also provide all the tooling to developers in an easy to use fashion, and to drive a lot more knowledge exchange. And this is where we have done a tech aware community, because eventually you want to build on the knowledge of others, build on the experience of others, and use those also in order to ensure that you do it right first time.
Thank you for sharing those 5 strategic priorities that you've outlined. We at Microsoft are also constantly thinking about innovating and providing tools that can help the developer ecosystem. For example, currently in public preview is the Microsoft Azure DevBox that essentially gives self service access to developers for high performance, pre configured, ready to code, cloud based workstations called DevBox. So thank you for sharing your insight. And my last question to you, Rafi, would be, amongst all of this, where you're providing customer velocity, developer velocity at scale for innovation, how are you ensuring that there is a security first approach and a thinking in the entire life cycle of your developers?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sangeeta, and we are giving utmost, focus and attention to security as well as privacy, and we are ensuring that we are thinking about it upfront. So there are two things that we are doing. One is, around the whole security, we have come up with a security first design approach, which essentially looks at what are the different capabilities, processes, and codification that we need to do in order to embed security in everything we do across the entire software engineering lifecycle. And second, we are doing the same for privacy. Because now with a lot of legislations coming across different countries, and a lot of countries having data residency rules and all that, so we are also ensuring what does it mean from a privacy standpoint, and how do we embed one, awareness of it, and second, the processes, the toolings, the controls that are required across the entire software engineering lifecycle. Now here, one of the things that we are doing also is not leaving it just as a process or guideline, but we're also looking to see how do we codify a lot of these policies so that the policies can get embedded into the entire DevSecOps process itself, so that as the code build happens, as it gets deployed, a lot of these checks are done automatically, and we identify any issues and exceptions upfront, and then essentially work on resolving some of these things, right? So this is one of the most important things for us, and these are the two ways we are looking at addressing.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all your learnings. It was a really insightful conversation for me, and I hope everybody watching this found it equally enriching and insightful. Thank you very much, Rafi.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta. Thanks for all the insightful questions and a good discussion.
Thank you.